All right. Welcome in, everybody. This is going to be episode number 10 of the Monty and Murdy College Football Show. We thank y'all for joining in with us. We had an exciting week of college football, and appreciate y'all for tuning in. Monty, how we doing, man? What's up?
Hey, obviously feeling pretty good after this last weekend. Big win for my team and, big win yesterday for the Kansas City Chiefs going into Atlanta and surviving. People can say what they want, but happy that my teams both won this weekend. Excited for this episode, another somewhat special episode. Obviously, for our listeners, we'll leave the Tennessee OU game for last in our preview or our recap, and we'll talk about that one pretty extensively. I was taking notes throughout the game for that one, and so we'll be able to talk about that game in depth. And obviously, I'll leave the floor to Murdy towards the end there to see what he has to say about his team and Tennessee. But question for you: I was here in Rocky Top for the first time in person.
That was tough to hear on Owen Field. I mean, granted, I think the video's doing a little better than what it was. I mean, it was I don't know. Like I said, I stayed till the very end, till the very last snap. I was one of the few. Most people had already made their way out of the stadium. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting scene there in Norman at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I was saying to you before we went live, I did have a surprise for you for this episode. I was at the grocery store earlier today, and I saw these, and I was like, man, what better time to purchase these for this episode? So I got these new beers. I don't know if you can see that. I'll be drinking this one for this episode there. got for those listening and not watching, it's the beer. It's from Independence Brewing Company out of Austin, Texas. It's the wrong orange. It's burnt orange, obviously, but silver. So it's not our orange, but the can says Oklahoma sucks. So that's what I'll be drinking for this first part of the episode. I haven't tried it yet, so I'll go ahead and open up a can of Oklahoma Tears here. Yeah, that's a nice sound right there. But anyways, happy to be here. Happy to talk about more than just the Tennessee OU game. We got some recap games to talk about and some week 5 previews. I will say this slate coming up, this will be a good slate, I think. Overall,
Yeah,
at least the 5 games that we're doing. Obviously, Tennessee doesn't have, for those listening, Tennessee is on bye this week, but we have some other games to talk about. Pretty good slate. I'm actually really excited to talk about that OU Auburn game. I think it'll be a good showing for OU.
Yeah, so for this episode, y'all, we're going to do our week 4 recap as we always do. Prior to hitting our week 5 predictions or preview, we'll do a quick top 25, let y'all know some new notes that are coming there. I got a thumbs up. Some new notes that are coming there. And then, as always, we'll finish the show with our dubs and duds of the week. And then we'll finish up with Monty's weekly hot take. So, Monty, let's go ahead and dive right in, man. The first game that we got to recap is the USF versus Miami game. Miami actually took a big win there, winning 50-15. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, this one, I mean, I thought, maybe USF could at least keep it close, maybe even come out with a win there, with it being at South Florida. Obviously a big fan of Golis down there. He's not going to be there very long. He's going to get a bigger job. He was, for those who don't know, Golis was Heupel's offensive coordinator at Tennessee for a couple years there, 2 years, and then took the USF job at coach. He's going to be the hot commodity this offseason, I think. But, I thought maybe they had a chance there. Wasn't expecting too much, but obviously Miami took care of business. For me, I'd say after seeing that, I would probably, and with Quinn Ewers being hurt for Texas, I would probably put Cam Ward at the top of my Heisman list. Dude's just calm under pressure at all times and continues to make plays. So I'd probably put him as my front runner for the Heisman right now as it stands. I noted that I am starting to buy in a little bit. I know I'm one of those guys that was tired of Miami being preseason ranked along with A&M. I'm starting to buy in a little bit. I'm like halfway in the door, halfway out. I just need to see them play, call it a real team, like somebody that's really like somebody that Miami should be worried about, like, because that's obviously how you kind of measure if a team is really good or not, or a contender or not, whether it be for the ACC championship or for the playoff overall. As it stands right now, do I believe Miami's a playoff team? Yes, just based on how they played in their games now. But I would really like for me to buy into them and have confidence in saying that they'll, win the ACC. I need to see them play somebody like, that's kind of what the thing with Tennessee was, right? People were like, well, they didn't really play anybody. We played a really good OU team in Oklahoma, and we're able to get out of that one relatively unscathed. So that's just what I want to see from Miami. But overall, they continue to show how extremely athletic their roster is, and I think that'll end up taking them to where they want to go, possibly, depending on how they do against some good teams.
Yeah, USF, I mean, they seem to keep it a game, at least for the first two quarters here. Kind of the tell of two halves. Miami 28-0'd them in the second half there, which, I mean, that's going to win you just about every football game you play in.
Yeah, and I mean, that is also what we talked about last episode, was that I think the talent was going to end up getting them the game in that second half. So we got that one right.
Yeah, and man, it's just they just seem to beat a little bit too much once you start getting in that second half. You start getting in the depths of, hey, you're getting the second, third man up of that USF roster, and it's, whether or not they're going to be able to hold up to the Miami attack, and it's just wasn't going to be the case for them. Miami had a little too much talent for them. Looking at Miami's future schedule, man, there's not a lot of meat on it. I'm gonna be honest with you right now.
Right, and that's good.
With right now, if you're looking at it with top 25 teams that are, top 25 teams that are top 25 teams right now, the only one they have a matchup with is Louisville. Their worst, there was
Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville, whatever. Hey, in case y'all can't tell, my voice is a little bit hoarse today. I'm still recovering a little bit from Saturday, but so yeah, we had they had a good matchup that was going to be with FSU, but with how FSU's looked this year, man, it's
they did get a win.
They finally did. They finally got a win, but yeah, not a lot of meat on that Miami schedule. So I mean, if they keep playing with the way they're playing, probably look for them to be a playoff team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I guess, what I'm trying to say is that Louisville game, that's kind of going to be Louisville is a very impressive team, but this year, they're number 15 now in the AP poll, and I think that I would have called them a top 15 team last week, so this makes sense. But that is in Louisville, so that's going to be their first real test. That's going to be the game that I'll want to see Cam Ward excelling and Miami as a whole excelling. Other than that, I mean, yeah, they go to Atlanta for Georgia Tech at the end there. So, but other than that, yeah, they got a pretty great shot to the playoff. That's why I think they will make it. I just hope that they're not the team that gets there and then they play somebody like Georgia and they get trounced for 4 quarters, kind of like how Florida State did against Georgia in the Orange Bowl last year. But I believe Orange Bowl, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, it'll be interesting to see what Miami can do against Louisville when the game rolls around.
Yeah. So the next game on the slot that we had to recap, or that we predicted last week, was USC versus Michigan. Man, a tight one, came all the way down to the fourth quarter there. Michigan ended up winning 27-24. USC missed a last 30-second field goal, or I forget what it was exactly. So overall, man, I just how it played out for me, I think Michigan defense, they kind of exposed a little bit of Miller Moss. They got him on a pick six. Kind of the only first game that we've seen Miller Moss actually a little bit struggle in. For all the other games, the bowl game last year and every game this year, he's looked pretty well flawless. So it's the first time you kind of saw him struggle a little bit. And Michigan may be turning a corner with their offense. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, they did what they said they were going to do, and I said last week that, if they did that, hey, we're going to run the ball. And if they did that, then they were going to have some success, which, as we saw, they did, come away from that one 27-24. I mean, the defense balled all 4 quarters. And obviously their run game ended up panning out against a pretty stout USC defense. I think we can agree that their defense is pretty up to par this year. But I mean, yeah, if you look at the stats, right, Orji passing, right, he was 7 of 12 for 32 yards, right? So they didn't really throw the ball. They did what they said they were going to do, and they were going to run the damn ball. On the flip side, Orji had 13 carries for 43 yards. So nothing crazy as a quarterback, but when you're running the ball 13 times, quarterback in a game, that's pretty substantial. But if you go to the running backs, right, you have that Khalil, and I don't want to butcher his first name, Khalil Mullins, I think is how you pronounce it, Khalil. 17 carries, 159 yards. So, I mean, and then Donovan Edwards, 14 for 74. So overall, 290 yards on the ground. So they did what they said they're going to do, and they had success doing it. So moving forward, I would expect them to do that. It'll be interesting to see, when they play Ohio State, who has a really, really, really talented, dominant defense. If that'll hold up, I don't think it will, but I think they'll have more success this season now with that mindset as a whole. But what you were saying about Miller Moss, if you watch the game, it looks like he kind of struggled. I think Michigan's defense just played an all-around good game. But, I mean, Miller Moss threw the ball 51 times. When you throw that many passes in a game, you're bound to make a mistake. So I think overall, he had not a bad game. 28 of 51, 283, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. So I think when you're bound to make a mistake throwing that much, I really don't think he had a bad game. I think Michigan was just able to control the clock and for the most part, keep USC's offense off the field. High octane offense that Lincoln Riley runs. That's important to do on defense, and obviously they were able to do that and get away with one in Ann Arbor. So both their seasons are still alive. I think they're both pretty good teams. I'm honestly more worried about Michigan than I am USC. So.
Well, the thing about it is, man, granted they got away with this one, but being that one-dimensional, it's not going to get you through the, where Michigan has the aspirations or where they went last year. You're not going to be able to get it through, you're not going to be able to win a national championship being one-dimensional on offense, saying, hey, we don't need to throw the ball for more than 30 yards. We could just run it. It's like eventually you're going to meet a team that are going to line up and they'll go man for man with you, and you might not be able to push them back off the ball like they were able to do USC here.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's not anyone else on the schedule, it's definitely home team. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll see where Michigan ends up taking it. Overall, close win. USC almost got that tying field goal at the end, barely missed it, and so not able to take it into overtime there. So unfortunately, USC falls a little short, but USC, still a lot of bright things for them. They do have a tough schedule this year. So they got plenty more opportunities to prove themselves. They got a matchup against Penn State, matchup against Notre Dame late in the season, matchup against Nebraska. Still to come on the schedule. So, they got some opportunities to prove themselves. I thought they were playing Oregon this year, but I guess they're not. But still some opportunities and still not out of it by any means.
Yeah, no, they're as long as they can keep doing what they're doing without, any struggles, man, they'll be just fine. But yeah, like I said, I don't think there's going to be any national championships coming back to Ann Arbor this year.
Yeah, and unless they can figure out a passing attack, I just don't think you can.
Doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah. So moving on, next game we got on the slate is Utah versus Oklahoma State. Utah's first road Big 12 game. Utah ends up getting the win, 22-19. Monty, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this one last week. We predicted Utah, but if it was if Cam Rising was playing, Cam Rising obviously did not play in this game. So I thought it was a very impressive road win without him. I thought he was going to be the game changer, whether he played or not. I think the game is closer than it would have been with him, but obviously Utah showed that the roster all around and that defense. And I saw in your notes, you had something about their defense. So I'll let you talk about the defense more. But yeah, I mean, I would say as of right now, front runner in the Big 12 for sure, showing that they're pretty resilient on the road and without arguably their best player. Of course, I put also besides Iowa State, because that one's still in play for me. My hot take at the beginning of when we first started the show. But no, it's overall really impressive win. Alan Bowman played a great game. I thought. I mean, I need to pull up his stats, but I mean, he overall did. I mean, Oklahoma State shows that they can throw the ball now. I just think that Utah has a really good defense and an offense that can score enough points to win. And obviously that showed.
Well, I mean, I think the difference in this one really boiled down to who had the better running attack. Ollie Gordon, first team All-American last year. He went for 11 carries, 42 yards this game.
Man, he's having a mediocre year. I don't know if it's because of his O-line or just because he's not seeing it. I don't know, but
whereas Bernard for Utah, I mean, he went 25 carries, 182 yards. Really, I believe Utah's backup, Isaac Wilson, Zach Wilson's little brother. Man, they were by having that run game, they were able to take a lot of. He wasn't having to carry Utah to this win. Utah, led by their defense and their rushing attack, he was able to. Now, granted, he still had a pretty similar performance to Alan Bowman, but I think with Cam Rising, this Utah team wins this game probably by 2 touchdowns, at least with how it played out.
So I was actually looking at the wrong stats. Alan Bowman had a pretty average game actually in this one. 16 of 33, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 picks. His QBR was 53.7. So, and Isaac Wilson, Utah's quarterback that was thrown in, wasn't any better, but it was definitely a defensive game. But, throwing 2 touchdowns in a game is good, but throwing 2 picks in a game is never good. Isaac Wilson also had 2 picks, but his QBR was 86.2. But, I think that game right there was more of a defensive game anyways. And like you said, Utah ran the ball really well. Had a total of 249 on the ground. Micah Bernard, 182 rushing yards, no touchdowns. But no, I think that game was very much a defensive game. Obviously, you had Cam Rising out, so you weren't going to have that production from them necessarily. And then Utah defense was able to take care of business. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was really what it said to me is Utah really made it. This is a big statement. I think they're the clear front runner for the Big 12 conference. The way they're able to just go into these matchups and they make you play their style of football, and their style of football is really advantageous for them. I mean, you got to think, if you look at the time of possession of this game, Utah had the ball for 42 minutes. Compared to Oklahoma State's 17, so they weren't able to really get a rhythm on offense or anything, and Utah was able to just keep that, very good Utah defense on the sideline, keep them rested. So when Oklahoma State came out, they're facing a fresh Utah defense. They don't get no wear down on them, and they're just able to run the ball, grind the clock out, limit your possessions. You're not going to be able to score that many points. You're not going to have that many opportunities to, and you're going to be facing a fresh defense while you're doing it.
100%, yeah, and that was the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So another Big 12 matchup. We had 2 on the slate for last week. Kansas State at BYU, which we got this one right. I didn't expect it to be like this.
No.
But BYU ends up winning big, 38-9 over Kansas State in Provo. Man, this was probably for me. This was the most surprising result of the weekend. And where does this make you think this BYU team, with already two really good wins under its belt, with it? All right.
What'd you do?
I don't
there to get the birthday balloons.
I have no idea. So BYU with 2 impressive wins under its belt already, with an SMU win in Provo, and now this Kansas State win. Where does this make you think BYU stacks up in the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely puts it in the conversation, right? I mean, obviously, and we'll talk about it when we get to our top 25 overview. They are ranked, though, now, obviously, going into week 5. But, yeah, no, it definitely sparks that conversation, right? But we said this at the beginning of the season, this Big 12 conference is going to get pretty raunchy in the middle of the schedule, in the middle of the year. But yeah, that just makes BYU another one of those contenders, like Iowa State, like Utah, like Oklahoma State, like Kansas State still as well. I mean, hell, we're not going to talk about it this week necessarily, but even Colorado, I mean, people can say what they want about them, but hey, they're sitting at 3-1 as well. So you only got a handful of Big 12 teams left that are 4-0 or 3-0 with bye weeks. But I mean, yeah, this Big 12 conference is going to be fun. But yeah, to answer your question in short, yes, BYU is definitely one of those teams now. This game, funny because this game actually reminded me of the K-State Arizona game, where BYU was K-State, right? BYU played the complete game like Kansas State did. I mean, did you see the possible play of the year, that punt return? I mean, that was freaking
incredible.
nuts. Yeah, and so they were able to bring it to them in all phases of the game, best team defense, offense, and it ended up being just like that K-State Arizona game, 38-9. What was interesting to me though about this game was K-State actually won the yard game. I mean, they had so the total yards were 367 yards. That was total offense. BYU's 241. 367, 240. So that's over 100 yards total offense that they dominated, or at least on paper dominated. The most interesting though is K-State had 228 yards on the ground to BYU's 92. So, it shows that you can, well, and then of course the score 38-9. So it shows that you can, if you dominate in all phases of the game, you can win games with those stats. So I just thought that was very interesting that if you look on paper without the score, you're like, oh yeah, this team beat the hell out of them. But in fact, it was literally the opposite, where the other team beat the hell out of them. So, BYU, I think BYU's defense showed that they're very good. They're going to be probably one of the best in the Big 12. But I will say Kansas State's still fine. I think BYU's just really good this year. But yeah, overall, like I said, it reminded me of that Kansas State Arizona game.
Yeah, man, it was like I mentioned last week on the podcast when we were breaking down the Kansas State Arizona game. It's Kansas State seems to go as Avery Johnson goes. It's the exact line I said before. And with this game, he kind of flattened out for them, and so Kansas State as a whole flattened out. He's, like you said, he's a young quarterback. They're going to come with their ups and downs, and you kind of got to ride the wave with them. And this is just kind of one of the ones where he kind of fell flat, and BYU capitalized. Granted, it wasn't necessarily through their passing attack or their offense. It's just their defense kind of playing a bend don't break, and with the special teams touchdowns and then causing the 3 turnovers. I mean, that's a good recipe for BYU to win the football game, which they were able to do.
Right, and that's a very similar stat line defensively as when K-State and Arizona played. So it's like I said, I keep going back to that, but that's literally what this game basically was. Just opposite, unfortunately, for K-State.
Yeah. So you got anything else on that one?
No, I mainly just wanted to highlight the yard discrepancies in compared to the score. It was just funny to me, especially the rushing yards. It's pretty crazy to see that BYU only had 92 on the ground, and yet they score almost 40 to Kansas State's 9. So,
well, it's like you said. When we're kicking this thing off before the season even started. This Big 12 is exciting to watch, and it is, man.
I mean, other than you can argue Utah is kind of the front runner, but really, I mean, Iowa State just beat Arkansas State, who, Butch Jones, they're not horrible. They just beat them 52-7. Iowa State doesn't score 50 points in a game. That's not what they do. And they turn around and they're 4-0 now, same as Utah, and they're, winning games 52-7. So it's actually, you just don't know. You got Colorado beating Baylor, which I don't think Baylor's anything special this year, but, you still got them at 3-1. Oklahoma State's now 3-1. Kansas State's now 3-1. BYU's undefeated.
Yeah.
So I think UCF might still be undefeated if I'm correct. So yeah, this Big 12 is going to be awesome towards the end. It already is awesome, but more so.
And that's Mitchie. I mean, you got a West Virginia team that, they've lost to possibly 2. Pitt. I didn't see the result from the Pitt game this week, but I mean, Pitt was a very good team. Penn State. But this West Virginia team, they're going to come into the Big 12 to try to make some noise. So they may be a little bit down now, but that's still a competitive football team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was trying to pull up the Pitt game.
It looks like they're
Weird.
1. I mean, looks like they're 26-7.
They're 4-0. I know that.
4-0 and they're 29.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember seeing this game. But they played Youngstown State, so an FCS school, but they won 73-7.
Yeah. So a Pitt team that's a fringe top 25 team, Big 12 is going to be exciting this year, so I can't wait. It's probably going to be where most of our losses come from, just because that is a really tough conference to predict as far as head-to-head matchups. So, man, let's go ahead and dive into it. Let me hear your thoughts. Tennessee versus OU. Tennessee came into Norman and won 25-15. Let me hear what you got.
Yeah, obviously we talked about this. I had mentioned to you, I'll take this one first, and then I'll kind of let you get your 2 cents in at the end and give you the floor there. Obviously, very happy with the outcome. I got a whole freaking page of notes for this one. So I was doing notes throughout the game, during the game, while my heart was in my freaking under my spine. But no, so I'll kind of go through this as I did it. So first half notes, I have UT and OU kind of on 2 different sides of this paper here. I'll start with Tennessee. First half notes I wrote, this defense may be the real deal. There was obviously a lot of doubts, because we were dominant in the first 3 games, but it was who we played. It was like, we're going into Norman, good team. So yes, this defense may be the real deal. I know we're seeing a lot of OU fans on Twitter or X saying that, our offense is atrocious, so you really didn't show anything, blah blah blah. But I mean, when you're able to get a team to bench their starting 5-star quarterback and put in a true freshman who didn't play bad, by the way, that true freshman, what was his name? Michael Hawkins Jr. I was actually impressed with him, but I'll get to him later. When you're able to do that as a defense on the road in the SEC, I mean, you gotta give credit when credit's due. And I think our defense did really well with that. Another thing on the offensive side, Nico looks great. But I also said, but he's young still. He had those 2 relatively. I mean, they ended up not being a big deal, those fumbles, because we got the ball back. But my mind just goes back to that touchdown pass to Dante Thornton, man, that freaking rope, that 66-yard touchdown was very impressive. That shows his talent, and I think you'll see more of that kind of as he goes on, not just this year, but as he progresses throughout his college career. But you see those flashes. But like I said, he's still young, so he still makes mistakes, and we saw the struggles. And I think that was also credit to OU's D line. OU's got a crazy good defense as well. Another thing, I wrote this note at halftime, but I was confused. I was like, I put not calling normal offense, question mark, because all of a sudden we got super conservative, and that's just not who we normally are. It's definitely not who Heupel normally is. I mean, if you watch any of our other games, not just from this year, but past 3 years, I was just surprised to see the conservative play calling. I think it maybe could have been that we kind of realized that our guys were sliding all over the place. I don't know what was going on with the field. It didn't seem like OU's guys were struggling too much with it, but our guys were. So maybe we were trying to avoid injury, and I think Heupel trusted enough in his defense to get the ball back and not let him score that he kind of went into a shell, for lack of a better term, and got more conservative. On the OU side, I guess this is kind of both, because I put it on the OU side, but I think Tim Banks, our defensive coordinator, Tennessee's defensive coordinator, did a really good job of using Jackson Arnold early. And then obviously having the depth on the D-line helped with that, but I think he did a really good job scheming up stuff to confuse him. Another thing I wrote for the first half for OU was they put together these really good drives where, it started getting frustrating for me as a Tennessee fan watching the game. I was like, dang, can you stop these guys? But then they could never punch the damn ball in. And I think that's kind of the story of the game, at least the story of the first half for OU. It was like, y'all were moving the ball, and then all of a sudden it was just like whether it was a mistake, turnover, something, but it ended up getting you, virtually 0 points. I think he had 3 at halftime, but still, it was like I was watching, I was like, man, I couldn't even imagine being an OU fan right now, because you think you're driving, right? You think you got something, and then you wound up with virtually zero. Which goes to my next point. I just said mistakes killing OU. That kind of goes hand in hand with that one. But I will say granted, going back, this is still first half note. The short pass game was working really well. I think when y'all started going away from that, obviously with Jackson Arnold's pick, when you try to take a shot, it just, you pay for it. But I think that short pass game was working really well. It was pissing me off, obviously, as a Tennessee fan, which means it's doing good for y'all. And then my last point for the first half was Jackson Arnold being benched. Obviously, good for us, bad for you. My only thing was, man, I wish OU would have just waited until at least halftime to take him out. You know, you get him out of there at halftime, you say, and then you have that time. You have more time as Venables or whoever your Seth Luttrell to talk to him face to face with no time crunch. Just be like, hey, look, tonight's not your night. We're gonna roll with Hawkins for the rest of the game. Blah blah blah. And I think that it just sets a bad precedent for not only Jackson Arnold, but OU fans when you take him out before halftime actually gets there. And I saw in your notes you mentioned Hawkins Jr. getting the start this next week. Is that confirmed, or you were just figuring that was going to happen?
It's not confirmed yet. We're probably expecting it. Venables hasn't spoken to the media since Saturday night, so probably coming tomorrow, Tuesday, which we'll get into that for the OU Auburn matchup. But yeah, that's something that's not confirmed, but it is something that's kind of expected in the program. And I'll put out some information as to why we believe that.
Okay. Yeah. I asked, like I said, I saw you had it. I didn't know if they had already said that or not. Because I thought that, it was going to be like, hey, tonight's not your night. Like, your job's fine for now, but you're obviously not. You're just not playing up to what you need to be playing right now. So we're gonna go ahead and roll with the freshman. But I guess we'll see. Only time will tell. Second half notes. And this is actually another point I wrote down. I noted it during halftime, but I just put for Tennessee need to get the run game going, which obviously we saw we did in the second half, and I think that helped kind of put the nail in the coffin. I wrote again, not sure what's going on with conservative play calling. And then I wrote a note underneath that Heupel knew he could do it. So I think that he kind of trusted his defense was going to get the job done. And we had the lead, obviously, at that time. Pretty comfortable lead, especially with the field conditions. I remember I was talking to my dad. It was 19-3 at the time, and I was like, man, 19-3 in this game feels like 28-0. Just based on how the game was going, and it wasn't only the field conditions. I think just how our defense was playing and how your offense couldn't get anything going. And we were able to keep your offense off the field as a whole. I think that just made it feel like a wider gap. On the OU side, I did say Michael Hawkins Jr. can ball, but I think Arnold should have played. As the game went on and towards the end, I changed my mind on that. And that dude had a great game for what it was, obviously, for OU. But I think he ended up keeping us from getting 30-plus points in that game, honestly, keeping our offense off the field as much as he could. But still a young guy, obviously true freshman, so he's not going to play perfect. That's a tough situation to come into when you just say, like, hey, look, here you go. Here's what you got. And that's a tough thing. But I think he did well with that. I think he was able to at least control what he could control. And that showed overall a good win for Tennessee. I did have overall notes, just a couple. I believe that when you look at the score doesn't do the game justice. I think we had a handle on that game all four quarters. I don't think, especially once it got to 19-3, I don't think anybody was really worried about OU coming back. So I think the score doesn't do it justice. I think we had a handle on that one the whole time. I can barely read my handwriting. Oh, I made a joke. I said, I don't know what the hell is going on with that field. Y'all need to freaking cut your grass or something, or stop watering it so damn much, or watering it before the game started, making our guys slip. But no, I mean, overall, it was obviously a great outcome for Tennessee fans. And I think that that should at least halt a lot of the doubt. Not, I mean, people are always going to doubt Tennessee and say we're going to choke at some point, which a lot of Tennessee fans do genuinely believe. Also, me being one of them, I don't believe we're going to choke. I just kind of waiting for it. I wouldn't be surprised at some point this year, if something bad goes, or something goes haywire. But I think that was a good win for us. I think that shut up a lot of or at least curtailed a lot of the doubt with the whole they haven't played anybody, wait until this game. So I think that game helped us, and we look good now. It makes me feel a lot better for the rest of the season. But I'll let you say what you need to say. I went a little bit longer than I wanted to because I knew you had a lot to say, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out there, and I was proud to see it. Obviously, a big win for Heupel coming back to Norman. I'm assuming you probably saw that video of him in the locker room. Got a little teary-eyed there in his speech. He was pretty happy to come back, and Nico giving him the game ball was a pretty cool thing to see. My throat got a little heavy when I watched it for the first time too, so it was good to see. It's fun that Tennessee's doing what they're doing.
Yeah. So I don't want anything I'm going to say here to take away what was a great win from Tennessee. I'm not trying to sugarcoat that or deny it. That was a great win, a dominant defensive line. I still think y'all may have some question marks in the secondary, but I don't think we were able to test them. Is really what that boils down to. Jackson Arnold, he played downright atrocious in that first half.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
It was, just missing wide open reads. I think the Tennessee D-line had him flustered. They were in his face early, often, and heavy. And I think you saw him get rattled. Now, granted, I have not shied away from Oklahoma's offensive issues. I've brought them up all 3 weeks. I said, hey, we're struggling on offense. Hey, we're struggling on offense. Hey, we are still struggling on offense. And
it's timestamped too. People can go back. This is documented.
This is documented. I said all 3. I said, hey, we are not good on offense. And coming into this game, it showed again. I'm not trying to take away from the defense. I'm saying that OU is still not good on offense. And Jackson Arnold, would just complete. All right. So there's a couple plays I got to break down here. Okay. So, what was a great play for the OU defense? They had a strip sack for Nico at the 5-yard line. After
I was for lack of a better term, I was shitting bricks after that happened.
Yeah, I believe Tennessee was still up 10-3 at this time. OU gets a strip sack at the 5-yard line. I believe it was after. Actually, I know exactly what happened. Tennessee player slipped on the kickoff return, fell, caught the ball, fell right on it, down at the 5-yard line. So 5-yard line.
Score line.
OU comes around, strip sack of Nico. OU recovers it. They got the ball at the 5. First play is a fake HB toss, quarterback counter play. Jackson goes up, fumbles the ball. Normally, 95% of the time, you're going to score points if you get a turnover in the opponent's 5-yard line. You're going to get at least something. Even if it's
inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah,
too.
inside the 5. I think it was recovered at the 4.
Yeah.
You're at least getting a field goal there. But no, OU came out with it. First play, Jackson Arnold fumbles the ball away. You can't do that. Even if now granted, the play call, we're not even going to get into that. Bad play call. Why we insist on running Jackson Arnold like he is Blake Bell, I have no idea. But
and I don't mean to cut you off because you did give me the floor, but I just want to, based on how he ran the ball in the previous weeks, you want to get your playmakers the ball, which obviously he was not one this game. But given half, what he had done with the ball, now up the middle, that's neither here nor there. But
up the middle is my point. Like the strength of that Tennessee defensive line, it's the edge or it's right there in the middle. If you're going to test anybody,
it's all of them.
Yeah, test the secondary, test the linebackers, see if they're able to freaking track you down. Jackson Arnold, he's not.
Don't worry, I don't have any more of them. I just had the one.
Yeah, so you're going ahead and putting that away.
Yeah, so I got my Mandela. I'm back to my Mandelas, anyways.
Yeah. Second turnover. Looks like a play. It looks like a setup, delayed play action. He kind of rolled a little bit left. It looked like something they had been working or rehearsing. A trick play they've been working on. and he goes ahead and throws it up to double coverage with the Tennessee defender standing right in front of the receiver, and there's one on the top on the backside. Tennessee didn't bite on it at all, and he just lobs it up there to him, throws a pick, and then he comes back out the next drive, and what should be a read box or a run box, right? If you got 6 men in the box, Tennessee was basically in some shell of a 4-2-5. Basically six guys in the box. They had 6 guys blocking with a tight end pulled in.
You had the numbers.
Yeah, you had the numbers. Hand that ball off. Hey, 6 versus 6, we got our back. He doesn't even have to make anybody miss if everybody wins. Granted, why do you run at the teeth?
Yeah, right, so that would actually be 6 versus 7. So that's actually a mismatch.
Favoring OU.
On the right.
Yeah, favoring OU. Hand that ball off. Nope. Jackson pulls it, throws it out to the flat. This is where you saw how rattled he was. Completely misses the wide receiver.
Yeah, it was short.
Yeah, short out to the left. We can debate on whether or not it was behind the line of scrimmage. I think it was right on it. However,
I think that play, had it been called incomplete, it would have been confirmed as incomplete. But because it was called a fumble, I think it could have gone either way depending on how it was called. Which,
exactly.
Fortunately for me, fortunately for Tennessee, unfortunately for OU.
Exactly. Then you give Tennessee another points right there off the bat. The crowd was electric for this one. I think they were real juiced. Tennessee traveled real well, but I mean, the OU crowd was probably the loudest it's been, at least, for people. I mean, I've heard people even say, ones who attend every single OU game, like, hey, this is just as good as the jump around game, or it was just as good as the Nebraska OU game back in 2000. It was an electric environment. That's enough. Like you said, I know I was shaking my head whenever you said, hey, let's get Jackson Arnold half. The boo birds had already come out for Jackson Arnold. I don't know if it translated to the broadcast, but the boos were already coming out pretty evident for Jackson Arnold after that third turnover. So I think the offense needed something, wanted to see if Michael Hawkins could give it a spark. And, outside of the botch snap right off the freaking jump, on Hawkins' first play, and then following that. But he was able to, and he was able to give OU at least a little bit of something. They didn't get anything in the third quarter, but coming down in the fourth quarter, I think he was able to kind of settle in. I think his nerves were still really hyped. That's a lot for a true freshman to come into a bad situation. You're down late against what is now a top 5 opponent. Then it was a top 10 opponent, whatever. But that's a tough situation, especially whenever you go in knowing, hey, my O-line has been getting put on their ass basically all game. If our 340-pound right guard Fabechi Wiwu, almost every play it seemed like he was getting moved 3 yards into the backfield. I'm like,
he was gonna need a Wiwu to come pick him up,
dude. Literally, I mean, he was. I was like, bro, you're 340 pounds. I could understand if it was Hickman, the center, who's got a bum ankle and he's about 300. I get it if he's getting blown back, but it's like, dude, you're 340. You got no injuries. You should be holding up at least. I'm not saying you got to blow back Tennessee, but man, at least hold the point. So, but with that being said, I think Michael Hawkins, at least with the flaws of this O-line, I'll get into it whenever we get into our preview. So I don't want to dive in there too quick. However, Michael Hawkins, he played great. He played gutsy. He gave OU something that they were missing in this game, which was a pulse on offense. And I mean, the defense I think they played lights out. Tennessee, they did get a lot more conservative in the second half, and I think it's kind of a two-edged sword. On part of it, I think there's both sides. There's OU people on X saying one thing, Tennessee people on X saying another, saying, hey, the field conditions are terrible. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want we could just grind it out and lean on our defense, which you absolutely could do. And I think that was a smart decision to do so. I think it also leans to the point of OU was causing some havoc for Tennessee whenever they were in full go of their offense. That defense was causing issues. They were causing turnovers. So I think leaning away from that, like, hey, we don't need to go up against this OU defense. We don't need to put the ball in jeopardy. So why are we? Because what could get OU back in this game is we throw a quick, say Nico gets, pressure in his face and throws a pick six. That would put OU right back in it.
Absolutely.
When it appeared that they were dead. They were pretty much a dead man walking. So why risk going up against this OU defense if we don't have to?
Right. And yeah, I do think that was my opinion. I think that was kind of it was like, why would we risk, a big turnover and get them, switch the momentum when our defense is doing what our defense is doing? It's like, yeah, we don't have to. So why do it? Why try? And all it would have been was for the fans. And at the end of the day, as a coach, you want your team to be good for the fans, but it's not about the fans during the game. You need to win football, and especially this one being, the first road SEC test of the year. It was like, we need to win this game. And right now we're winning, not just by the score, but on defense, like overall, like our offense can move the ball, which in the second half we were able to run the ball a little bit more. So we were winning that game, and then obviously we were winning on defense. So yeah, I think it was just more about like, why would we risk that momentum, changing when we don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think this game is a good example. It shows that OU's defense is going to be able to keep them in a lot of games.
Absolutely.
I don't think you're going to run up more than 30 points on this OU defense. I think Tennessee is probably still one of the best offenses in the SEC.
Yeah.
As far as dynamic,
scored.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, as far as dynamic playmakers and all around with Nico, with how well he can throw. Nico throws a beautiful deep ball. I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so with his amount of touch, I mean, they're dynamic as probably any team. I mean, granted, Ole Miss hasn't been tested yet. We're still waiting on that.
I don't even want to give them the time of day until they play a fucking, excuse my language, until they play somebody worth a crap.
But so just to sum this game up, I mean, we've already spent quite a bit of time on it. I don't think this is a good statement win for Tennessee. I think this makes Tennessee a playoff favorite. I believe they are put themselves in the driving seat, and all they do is not have to have the season fall apart on them. I mean, they could even lose to Alabama and Georgia, which is probably their two most difficult remaining games. Yeah. That's not really even a controversial take. They could lose both those games, 10-2. I think this Tennessee team still probably makes the playoff at 10-2.
And I think that's where most people are projecting us going 10-2 with losses to both those teams. I believe, and
I'm not saying they're going to lose those games. I was just saying they could and still make it, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. No, I know exactly what you're saying. And they're honestly more likely to lose both than win both.
We will see this week. We will see this week.
Yeah, I will say. And obviously, this is everyone was like, oh well, Oklahoma was Tennessee's first test. Tennessee's first test to Oklahoma. Going to Oklahoma is their first test, and I was saying it too. Obviously, we were both saying it. But now after this game, right, with how OU's offense played, and how our offense played against a good defense, it's now for me, it's like, well, our first test after that one is after the Alabama game. Because that game's going to be in Neyland, right? So there's going to be no excuse for any field anything, right? Because that's where our guys play, and where they have played for however many hundreds of years. And it's still the natural grass, and we do the orange and white scrimmage in Neyland. They do the team only scrimmage in Neyland, so there's no excuse for that. And it's going to be obviously a most likely a top 5 matchup. And Alabama also has a very good defense, but they have a very good offense. So I think with that being said, that's going to be the first test, at least for Oklahoma was the first test. So for our defense, I think with an elite offense, that's going to be the first test for them.
Yeah, Oklahoma, I don't believe they didn't have the ponies in the barn to really test that Tennessee defense.
And
Now,
again, not to take
granted,
away from Tennessee's defense, I think that they also caused that as well.
no, yeah, they absolutely did. They caused them to play even worse, and that's where I did make a note. I think I texted you about it. I said Tennessee did Oklahoma a favor here by
Yeah, you
playing
did text me that.
by making Jackson Arnold play bad enough to where he had to be benched and bring Michael Hawkins out. I'll get to it here in our OU Auburn preview, but I think they did Oklahoma a favor. I'll explain it here later, so y'all keep listening. Let's go ahead and preview our top 25. Big thing that jumps out to me, Tennessee up to number 5, top 5 team. Went ahead of Ole Miss, which, as we said, Ole Miss hasn't played anybody. They don't have I don't think they have an argument to be ahead of Tennessee right now. Miami up to 7. Missouri down 4, even after a win versus Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt played them as close as you could play them. Which we had.
Oh, well, the hell, they missed that dang field goal at the end to lose.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is I think me and you, we can hold our torches a little bit there. I think we both said Missouri was pretty fraudulent at they were at number 6 2 weeks ago. They were at number 7 last week. A little fraudulent there. We'll see.
I think the AP voters are kind of starting to see that. So we'll see what the college football playoff committee ends up ranking them, assuming that they continue to win with that cupcake schedule. But I think AP voters are starting to see that as well.
Anything else that jumps out to you? I mean, Michigan up to 12, USC only down to 13. I think they saw they're like, hey, they just Michigan was just able to run it down their throats. Louisville, sorry, up to 15. Notre Dame 16. Clemson with a jump up to 17. We'll talk about them a little later.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna talk about them briefly we'll get.
Yeah, the Fighting Illini of Illinois up Illini up to number 19. Oklahoma State, OU 2021.
Down 6 spot.
Yeah, down 6, and then Kansas State down 10 to number 23. And our Boise State making their first appearance this year in top 25.
Yeah, I got for those listening not watching, I got a Boise State shirt on right now because they're ranked, baby. No, I did not go to Boise State. I have a family member that went there. 2 family members that went there actually, and they're actually going to be in Boise for the Boise State Wazoo coming up. So that's a big game for Boise State. But big deal that they're ranked again finally. So repping the shirt. But no, I mean things that jumped out at me at this new top 25. Obviously Tennessee jumping Ole Miss. I remember telling my dad after the win, I was like, do I think that anyone will move? Like, do I think Tennessee will jump Ole Miss? Probably not. But don't be surprised if it happens because big win for Tennessee on the road, SEC game, and Ole Miss hasn't really played anybody. So I was like, don't be surprised, but they might keep Ole Miss there just because when you get down to that top 5, top 6, if everyone keeps winning, they typically don't move anybody. But obviously here they did. So I said, yeah, don't be surprised.
Well,
exciting for us.
Just one note about that is that I think no matter what happens, Tennessee's going to be a top 4 team come next week. Next week's episode, they're going to be top 4 because they're going to jump the loser of Georgia, Alabama. So
man, I don't know. So if Alabama loses, we'll go top 4. If Georgia loses, there's an argument made that they go to 4 and Alabama goes to 2 or 3, because if Georgia were to lose, and especially if it's a close one, even though they're 3-1 and we're 4-0, they're going to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. So if they play it close and it's like a last second or a fourth quarter showdown, whatever, Georgia. I still believe Georgia should be number 1 personally, but I think they're the best team in college football. I don't think they're and we're gonna get to our.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Running back. Well, we're gonna talk about the game, but no, I think if they lose to Alabama, I think they have an argument, or the AP has an argument to keep them at 4. But we'll see. We'll see. I would love, obviously, for top 4. That'd be awesome. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see who wins that game. Because, like I said, if Alabama loses, then we're absolutely top.
All right, we're already running a little long in this episode, which I figured we would with just what game we were recapping. All right, so previewing our first matchup of the week is OU versus Auburn. We got OU's going for their first SEC road game. Going to Auburn, play at Jordan-Hare. It'll probably be a tough matchup, but Auburn is one of the few teams, they probably have more question marks than OU does at this point. Just because they have them on both sides of the ball. They have question marks on the defense. They have question marks on the offense. They have question marks at quarterback, just as we do on the offense and quarterback. But I don't think there's any questions about that OU defense. I think they've pretty well answered the call, is that, hey, we're good, and we'll keep OU in a lot of football games. For this one, man, I think OU's going to go in there and get a win, move them to 4-1. They'll be able to go and take a bye week, which is much needed. They need to get healthy. We lost, but by the second half of that Tennessee game, we are playing all true freshmen at wide receiver. So much so that we're pulling for this week, it's already been announced, we're pulling Jacoby Johnson. He's a redshirt freshman cornerback. He's trained, but he was a both sides of the ball player coming out of high school, and really, really dynamic wide receiver. So we're switching him over to wide receiver to try to give us more depth, try to give us more size, because most of our
I did not know that.
Yeah, like I said, we got really depleted in that Tennessee game. We lost Deion Burks, who's our wide receiver one. We lost Nick Anderson, who we had just gotten back. I watched him go out in probably our 5th or 6th play of the game with another quad strain. So we lost a lot on the wide receiver room. So we were playing really depleted throughout that game. So that bye week's going to be huge for Oklahoma. But give me the Sooners to bounce back here. I think Michael Hawkins is going to make his first start for Oklahoma. I think Jackson Arnold is really talented, but I think he has been in his own head. Basically all 4 games that he's played this year. I think he's in his own head. He can't seem to I don't know if he can't seem to figure it out. I think he's still a really talented quarterback. I think he is a outstanding talent. However, if
he's same class as Nico, ain't he?
Yeah, he's same class as Nico. He was
just still a young guy.
Yeah, in some services, he was the number 1 quarterback in that class. Like I said, it depends on what service you look at. Some of them have Arch, some of them had Jackson.
Some of them had Nico.
So it really just depends on who you look at there. But I think he's an outstanding talent. I think he's in his own head. It's basically all mental when it's coming to his game. Now, granted, I don't think he doesn't have an issue throwing the deep ball, but he has an issue with his accuracy right now, which is a mental thing when it comes back to it. So, granted, I think he's going to be a tremendous college football player. I think he still has upside for the NFL, but if he doesn't see the field again this season, just with the way college football works nowadays,
he'll probably be gone.
He'll be gone, and I think, unfortunately for us OU fans, we'll probably see him playing pretty well. Maybe even, maybe he might even go play well for the Seminoles out in Florida State. But I think it'll be tough to watch, but I think he will figure it out. Kind of similar.
Man, the last thing you want is him going in the SEC, like being like Jackson Dart's replacement or something. That'd be bad news for you.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. Similar to how Spencer Rattler went out for us, almost a similar scenario. Granted, it didn't make it as far into the season, but kind of a similar kind of playback with how Spencer Rattler was, came in after Jalen Hurts. They're like, hey, this is the guy. Caleb Williams, freshman, he was supposed to sit behind him, and then you saw Caleb Williams. He took the job and never gave it back. Right. So we'll see what Michael Hawkins does, but I believe he's probably going to be the starter for this one. Granted, his dad is a former NFL cornerback, so he comes guys who are raised in the household, with NFL players, like they know their whole life, like what the expectation is, what the pressure is, what you have to do, the work you have to put in there. That's kind of reflected into them. So these younger guys that we're seeing come around, we'll see. I think he's, from all reports, it's just now coming out this week. Apparently, how beat reporters are. They, we'll see how accurate they are. You know what I'm saying?
They jumped the gun.
Well, not saying they jumped the gun. I'm saying they're putting out reports now. They're like, well, yeah, it's not really a surprise that Michael Hawkins went in there and outplayed Jackson Arnold, because we've heard all off season that Michael Hawkins was outplaying Jackson Arnold in spring ball and in fall camp.
I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So they're like, we're not surprised by this. We knew this. We just couldn't say that. You know what I mean? So whether they're right on that or, that's accurate or not, there are some former players that were at practice whose opinions I probably tend to trust a little more. And those guys are even saying, they're like, yeah, when I was out there, Hawk flashed. And, it showed in that game that, hey, he came in with some grit. He came in, played well. I got OU in this one. I don't want to run any longer. Monty, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's your team's games. I don't mind when, you know way more about them than I do. No, but what I do know about is Auburn and their struggles. Obviously, just last week having their struggles, especially at the quarterback position, more so than OU, I'd argue.
Hard to do.
Thorne out.
Hard to do.
Peyton Thorne, man, he's been struggling. I really don't know who Auburn's even gonna freaking start this week. It probably will end up being Peyton Thorne, maybe. I don't know. We're recording on a Monday here, so we'll wait and see what goes on in practice this week for Auburn. Who Hugh Freeze died to start, but as of right now, from what I know, it'll be Peyton Thorne, and he's had some struggles. My game changer in this one will be OU's offense, of course, because I mean, y'all are gonna roll in there. Your defense is gonna roll in there and just cause havoc. I mean, there's gonna be Auburn's not gonna be able to move the ball. They don't have a good offense. They have athletes on the offensive side, but they don't have a quarterback who can get them the ball. And I think your front seven are going to be too much for their D line. You had said about this game, it's going to be a tough game. And when you said that, I was like, no, it's going to be a tough environment.
Well, yeah.
In the first half, I don't think it's going to be a tough game per se. As long as, like I said, game changer is OU's offense. But if you can get something going, especially if Hawkins starts and he does well, I think you go in there and you steamroll him. I guess my pick is OU. Obviously, I think that y'all will take care of business there. Especially at least the defense will. You won't give them much points, if any. So even if you win 13-0,
yeah,
I mean that's still a win. But no, I think y'all be fine. Y'all what's the spread?
2.5.
I don't know what the
OU's favorite.
It's 2.5.
2.5.
I'm gonna say y'all cover that. That's for sure. Could be wrong, but I'm going with OU.
Well, it's just, I mean, Auburn's offense hasn't looked very dynamic against even worse teams than OU, if that makes sense, defensively.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call Arkansas better than OU.
No, and I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't call Cal.
Cal beat them too. Because Arkansas just went into Jordan Hare and won, and Arkansas's got a good quarterback, but I would say they're better all around than OU.
I mean, granted, at least defensively, Cal held them to 14, and Arkansas held them to 14. I'd expect OU to hold them below 10.
I would not be shocked unless barring something crazy. But with what I've seen from Auburn so far, I'm definitely going with OU here.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and
cover.
Yeah, let's go ahead and roll it to our next game. Oklahoma State versus Kansas State. I got in my notes, man. This is like the second place Big 12. Granted, it's not second place in the Big 12 because of Iowa State and Boise State or BYU. Sorry,
and
Utah. But these two programs were seen coming into the season as the teams to compete. It was Utah,
and they still can, and
Oklahoma State, and they still can. Utah, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. So that's why I have it as the second place game.
Yeah.
And this one, man, it's kind of a tough one to call. I think Oklahoma State's defense is going to cause problems for Avery Johnson here. Even though it is a home game for Kansas State, I think Oklahoma State is going to go in there and win. So give me the Pokes here to rebound. I think Mike Gundy will have them after a tough loss to Utah. I think Mike Gundy's going to have this team hungry to come out and play. And give me the Pokes.
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually just now, as I was thinking about it, as we were coming into this matchup, I just now switched my choice. I was going so obviously, so these two teams are both coming off a Big 12 loss, right? So you would expect that both of them want to rebound. My original choice was K-State. I think that at home, their fans are going to be wanting them to win again. Coach is going to want them to, Avery Johnson's going to want to prove himself. I think, that defense, I think I trust Mike Gundy more. I think that defense is going to confuse Avery Johnson. I think Avery Johnson is going to end up struggling. If I were to guess, I'm going to say this game is going to look like that Utah-Oklahoma State game, like a 21-17 kind of thing, but, close. But, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State as well.
Yeah, I don't think Kansas State's going to come into their home stadium and lay an egg, kind of how they did against BYU.
A field goal.
Both of us predicted an upset here. Kansas State's actually favored by 6 in this one.
I think that's what it's going to end up being.
Home.
Right there with it.
Yeah. But give me the Pokes here. So we'll go ahead and roll on.
With an asterisk.
Go ahead and roll on. No differences in our picks this week. I want to give a shout out to Monty. We haven't covered it. He went 5-0 last week. So shout out to Monty. We do have an asterisk there. It's on the Utah game. When we predicted it, we said, hey, if Cam Rising plays, Utah's winning this thing. We predicted Utah to win. Cam Rising didn't end up playing, but Utah still won.
I'm sure
we got an asterisk there. Because I believe we said if Cam Rising's not playing, give me Oklahoma State
with an asterisk.
So we'll see. Yeah. So So rolling on, next game we got a ranked matchup: 15 versus 16.
This is one of the ones kind of like that Oklahoma State.
Louisville versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame's favored by 6.5 in this one.
Very good.
Who you got in this one, Monty?
I did pick Notre Dame because I don't think Marcus Freeman's going to lose 2 games at home this year. At least not to Louisville. I think do they play in South Bend against USC? Do you know? Yeah, well, so I just don't think in LA. Okay, yeah. So I don't think Marcus Freeman's going to lose twice in South Bend this year.
I'll let you know.
So it's not to Louisville team. I think that this game might end up being close, but I think that Notre Dame O-line and I just don't see Louisville beating Notre Dame's run game. I just don't see it. But I will be thoroughly impressed if Louisville does come out with this one. But I'm taking the Golden Domers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on this one.
At least since that.
Like I said, I think Notre Dame has kind of figured out what kind of football team they need to be, and they're not going.
Yeah.
NIU loss. Yeah. Which that's looking worse and worse with NIU taking the loss to Buffalo last week. However, Notre Dame, I think they've kind of realized that, hey, we're going to be a team that runs the football and we play good defense. Kind of similar to how Michigan's figuring out. They're like, hey, we might not be throwing the ball for a lot of yards this year, but we're damn sure going to run it. I think they're going to.
I think if they let Riley Leonard,
that's what I'd rely on for Notre Dame is they're going to lean on the run game. Riley Leonard running the football.
I don't think it's going to.
I don't see it getting ugly. I mean, teams who play the way that Notre Dame and Michigan are probably going to have to this season, they don't tend to blow other teams out. But that's just because they're limiting possessions and they're saying, hey, we're just going to run it down, chew clock, and let our defense get after you. So both taking the Notre Dame here. We'll roll on to our next game, Illinois versus Penn State. Ends up being a top 25 matchup. Big
So
game for Penn
at the
State
beginning
here.
of the show, I said that this slate is actually a pretty good slate,
Yep,
at least the one we're
absolutely.
picking, because this
So
is
who you got
another
in this
one
one,
that I
Monty?
actually had a hard time picking. So I'm going with Penn State because I do believe that, man, that home environment's lethal. Their pass game seems to be coming along. Penn State's kind of one of those teams that people can't decide if they're going to make the playoff or not. I still think that they're looking good so far. But I want to say, don't get it twisted. I want Illinois to win this game really bad, but I'm taking Penn State.
Yeah, it's kind of tough for me to pick Illinois in this one. I think, granted, they were able to beat Nebraska last week in an absolute great game. But whenever I'm looking at this one, I think Penn State's probably just they have a little bit more than Nebraska does. I think they're just gonna have a little too much talent, too much depth, and this one also being played in Penn State. Penn State calls their it's what, Happy Valley.
Yeah.
This one being played in Happy Valley. I think the Penn State fans are going to show up for it. It's a night game.
Yeah.
So, night game, Happy Valley. Man, give me Penn State this one. I don't think it's going to be that close. Granted, Penn State's favored by 18.
What Illinois is about. Are
18 points
they a
in this
Big Ten
one.
contender? Or are they another one of those?
I imagine they probably will cover it, but I don't think they're going to do too much more than that.
That would cause chaos in college football. But I'm going with the Nittany Lions here. I think that home environment, and now knowing that it's a night game, and Drew Aller looks good this year, so
looks real good. He's still not showing that same trend he had last year, not putting the ball in jeopardy. He's not throwing the ball that much, but whenever he is, he's getting a lot of yards for it. Which, I mean, I love their offensive coordinator. Came from Kansas, Andy Kotelnicki, I believe is his name. I think he's a tremendous offensive coordinator for P4. Yeah, UGA going to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. Who you got in this one, man? Oh, this one is a tough one for me to pick. I'm going to be honest with you.
I believe this one can go either or. It's a 50-50 game. 50-50. Yeah, I mean, 50% of people are going to predict this one right. 50% of people are going to predict this one wrong. No matter, who they pick. Both teams are coming off a bye, right? So I thought when I initially looked at this game a couple weeks ago, I thought Georgia was the only one coming off bye. And so I was like, oh yeah, Georgia's gonna have a little bit of an upper hand. No, Bama also had a bye week this past week, which I love that they both had, because they just build it up more, because they've been scouting each other for 2 weeks, right? Well, they can solely focus on each other for the 2 weeks, right? But but no, it's
probably longer than that.
It's going to be a fun
probably
one.
Since
I think it's going to be
got the job
out in this.
Yeah.
I picked Georgia. I'm going with the Dogs. But don't be surprised if this is Jalen DeBoer needs this game. I mean, to show that, hey, Saban gone, but look, we're hitting the ground running. We still got it,
he does.
I said on the show previously that this Alabama team looks very Saban-esque. I think that they already have hit the ground running. But yeah, DeBoer needs this one bad, but I don't think he's going to get it. I think he's pretty smart in the Dogs to take this one in a close one, of course. And I think Tennessee's going to end up being number 4. All right. Well, you got to at least give me a reason.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm going Bama here. I had UGA in this one.
That this is the game that
I think Bama.
The Dogs are going to show that they're still the Dogs.
Granted, they didn't look great against USF early in that game. The Kentucky UGA game, Georgia did not look good. Kentucky really gave them some issues. Kind of drug them into a game that Bama kind of has the potential to do with their running game, and I think that would probably be smart on Alabama. Just with Jalen Milroe's dual threat ability, he can still throw the ball. He's not just solely a running quarterback. He can throw the ball. But I think if Alabama can drag them into that kind of game, with the home crowd there, another night game, 6:30 p.m. kickoff.
Yeah,
I think Bama can. Granted, Georgia is favored by 1.5 in this one, this is as close as Vegas gets to a pick'em game. I think Alabama. I think they can maybe score more points than what Georgia can match. We'll see. But I think give me Alabama in this one. I don't feel great about it. I think I had UGA until probably about 3 minutes ago. I went ahead and switched it. That's the one game we're going to differ on this week. We'll see who wins. UGA, Bama. Great game. Make sure y'all tune into it. We're going to go ahead and roll on to our dub and duds of the week.
Yes, I do hate Alabama more than any other team in college or NFL. I hate Alabama. But Tennessee actually needs Bama to win this game and then turn around and Georgia lose to Texas also, because Georgia's probably going to beat us. Because it's November, like 13th or something. I don't know what it is, 16th, whatever the date is. Tennessee goes to Sanford Stadium and plays in Athens, and we'll probably end up losing that game. And if we can split with Alabama, beat Alabama, lose to Georgia, but they have lost to Alabama and Texas, we would actually go to the SEC championship. We would go to the SEC championship on the east side of the SEC. So we actually need Alabama to win this game. So I'm pulling for Bama, but I think Georgia's going to win. So before anyone comes at me about being biased, I'm not. Oh, I've thought about it. I've thought about the whole scenario of how to get Tennessee to the SEC championship. Trust me.
Yeah, you got real into the weeds on that one. Which, I mean, that kind of brings up a little side point. I want to just hit on it real quick.
Make the argument.
It may make that argument. In the way the college football playoff is now, it may be tougher to win an SEC championship than it is a national championship.
I will be watching that game. So,
man, I think this is gonna be a great game. I can't wait to watch it. So we'll go ahead and roll on our dubs and duds of the week. Monty, we'll always start with something. We'll start with our duds. We'll roll on to our dubs, end on a positive note.
On these guys or anything.
So who do you have as your dud of the week for this week?
Dud. I mean, Nebraska, they lost their 400th consecutive sellout, man. It was their 400th consecutive sellout game at Lincoln Memorial, and they let the Fighting Illini come in and beat them. Man, what a letdown for the fans. I'm sorry to all those fans, and I do still think Nebraska's a football team, but that one of all of them, man, that's tough. That's tough. So that's my dud of the week. Nebraska losing their 400th consecutive sellout. It dates back to, I believe it's 1962. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look it up, but it's definitely in the 60s. And yeah, they unfortunately let the fans down. I watched that whole game actually. I was impressed with Illinois, but it went to overtime. It went to overtime, and Nebraska looked horrible in overtime, and Raiola looked like he had just seen a ghost in overtime. But it sucks for the fans. So that's my total.
Yeah, like I said, I was real high on Nebraska this season.
He played pretty well.
They proved me right up until this point. That's what it looked like. It looked like Raiola was kind of a little overwhelmed in overtime.
True freshman, and he'll learn. He will learn from it.
He played pretty well.
I watched that game.
He's a freshman going into a top 25 matchup in overtime.
They lost that one of all the ones that they could have lost.
And that's absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say Matt Rule looking real good for his year 3. You know, Matt Rule's got that year 3 is his big year, and with Dylan Raiola coming back with all this experience from this year, Nebraska Nebraska may be a problem, but it ain't over for them yet. They still got a lot of games left. So for my dud of the week, I had to go with Big Noon Kickoff. Kind of a weird one, I know, but Big Noon Kickoff decided to go to Ohio State versus Marshall over going to Utah versus Oklahoma State. Number 12 versus number 14, they went and watched. Instead, they went to the Ohio State crowd, and Ohio State ended up blowing Marshall out. I don't know who runs their production team or whatever the case. However, I just can't think that's a good decision, especially when you got, ESPN College Game Day going to OU versus Tennessee. You had the the game was broadcasted on Fox. I know Big 12, they have split media rights between ESPN and Fox.
You could probably
this game was actually a Fox
Big Noon
game.
Kickoff to your dud for next
Utah
week
versus Oklahoma State.
4 hours
and they
ago,
just said, we're good.
They're heading
We'll
to
go ahead and
Colorado
watch.
at UCF. I looked it up. Yeah, they're going to Colorado at UCF.
All right, Big Noon Kickoff's a joke. That's a joke of a show. Yeah. All right. Either way, Big Noon Kickoff. Y'all had a lot. There's a lot of games in the Big Ten you should have went to.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, I told you this before we
Monty,
went live.
Who do you have
this is no surprise. I haven't done them in a while.
Your dub of the week? Who is your dub of the week?
My dub of the week is Tennessee, but it's mainly Coach Heupel, man, because you got to give it to him. It's as much as he downplayed it throughout last week, and it's not about him, it's about the team, and it was. You saw that, but the team knew how much it was probably gonna mean to him if they won, and the team fought for him. The team left it all out there in Norman for him, and I had mentioned to you about the video, the post game video when he's talking to the team. He gets all teary eyed. It did mean a lot to him, and so it's a huge win for him. It's great to see him being vulnerable with his guys, right? So it's pretty cool to see that stuff, and that's why I gave him the dub of the week. And in that post game, I guess pep talk, if you want to call it, to his team, he says, the whole premise of it, he talked to them about, how they can continue to get better, good teams get better, this and that, made it about team. Then at the end, he said, this game was never about me, but I appreciate you guys giving extra for me. And that was pretty cool to see, because they did. And then Nico ended up giving him the game ball, and you saw they started jumping on him and stuff, and you saw him say thank you under his breath to Nico. It was cool to see as a Tennessee fan, but overall, just as a college football fan, that stuff's always cool to see. So that's my dub.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Heupel has huge ties to the University of Oklahoma. Not only winning our most recent national championship as the starting quarterback in 2000 and being a Heisman runner-up, but also coming back and being as our offensive coordinator for quite a few years until being fired by Bob Stoops at the end of the 2014 season. And what really, that's got to be tough coming back, have a school that means that much to you, means as much, to be fired from it or removed from it. That's that takes a toll.
And Tennessee fans
I think Hype
disagree with that.
I think he's evolved as a coach tremendously since he was at OU, and I don't think he would be. Yeah, I don't think he'd be the coach at Tennessee right now if he hadn't have been fired from OU. If that makes sense, like it's what he's learned and what he's adapted and what he has developed himself into as a head coach
now.
Sometimes you gotta go through some valleys in life to get you back to the top of the mountain. Yeah, absolutely. So my dub of the week, not nearly as something as serious, but is something that I think is good for it's Clemson after the win versus NC State.
Yeah.
Clemson, they got taken out week one. They got taken to the woodshed by Georgia in week one, but they have rebounded pretty nicely since then. They're still a contender for that in the ACC, and they've played great football since being smacked around by Georgia. Now, granted, does that reflect more on where Clemson is in comparison to Georgia or the ACC as a whole? That's kind of left up for debate. But Clemson has rebounded nicely, and I know their friends their fans
Clemson's
are
hot right now.
really
I saw something
kind of starting to buy back
saw
into
it. Yeah, I
Dabo
kind of agree with
and
that. Honestly,
that
with the way that
program.
they're
So
playing.
we'll see where the rest of the
I
season
saw it
takes
on
them.
Twitter or X that Clemson's playing like a top 10 team right now, and they are. I mean, you can make the argument, about NC State maybe not being as good as people paying them out to be, and Grayson McCall didn't play against Clemson, this and that. But at the end of the day, I mean, you got a rival there, and they come into Clemson and they get spanked. And I think Clemson just looks really good. Cade Klubnik with an Arch Manning-esque rushing touchdown in that game. I mean, Cade Klubnik has looked great in the games that they've won this year. Clemson is, I think, right now playing, I'd say top 15 football right now. I maybe even top 10, but they look really good, and that actually kind of rolls. It's funny because that actually kind of rolls into my hot take. If we want to go straight into that, so Monty's hot take of the week: Miami does not win the ACC this year.
All right,
that's my hot take. Miami does not win the ACC.
Yeah, roll into it. Let's go.
Good. This is what I was saying earlier. How I was going to talk about Clemson. I think with how good Clemson looks right now, and Miami. Don't get me wrong, Miami looks good also, right? But they just, like I said, I want to see them play somebody. So the Louisville game will be kind of the first test, I think. And I do believe that Miami will be in the ACC championship, but I don't think they will win the ACC. I think it'll be probably Clemson, but also there could be somebody, Pitt won the ACC in 2022. They look good. There's a couple teams that are kind of, lingering underneath Miami right now, especially Clemson. So my hot take is, and all these hot takes that I've had in all these 10 episodes, there are things that I do genuinely believe. And this one, Miami does not win the ACC in 2024. Right?
Man, talk about some chaos that could come. Like, say Clemson drops another game, somewhere along the way. They're 10-2, but then they win. They'd be a conference champ at that point and be in. So talk about the chaos of the playoff. We can get to that later. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. I know we ran a little long, but we had a big game to debrief and talk about.
People
so it ran us a little extra time there.
Like
but
said, this one
we want to thank y'all for tuning
normal.
in.
It'll be
Monty, you got anything you want to say?
Normal from here on out, barring anything crazy. But yeah, we obviously had to talk about the OU Tennessee game. That was a big one. That was a fun one. Obviously, Monty, me, I have the bragging rights until next year when we play in Neyland Stadium. So, till then, Tennessee's a better football team than OU. No, but we appreciate everyone listening.
Yeah, I'll let you have that one. So yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. As always, please subscribe to the show. Follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us there. Thank y'all for tuning in. As always, if y'all have any questions, anything y'all want answered, reach out to us. We'll be sure to plug it into our weekly mailbag. Man, another great episode. We're 10 episodes into this thing. It's rolling. We're getting it rolling pretty good. I feel like we're starting to find a good flow.
All right.
So, man, thank y'all for listening. We appreciate y'all. And until next time, we'll catch y'all. Peace.